What is going on, everybody? Hello and welcome to On the Pipe Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Tyler Shepardson, and today is Monday, September the 12th, 2022, years after zero. We're trying this thing out. We've talked about it. We're live right now. So hopefully you're watching this, tagging along, give you an opportunity to ask questions as we go and kind of join in with the conversation with us as well. So Stu Baylor, obviously, winner on the weekend. He's going to be joining us here in just a moment to talk about the weekend and talk about everything that's going on. But before we get into that, I want to let you guys know, as always, Beta Motorcycles is the official manufacturer of On the Pipe Podcast. Beta Motorcycles has been family owned and operated since 1905. They manufacture the finest trials, enduro, dual sport motorcycles that are known for their premium quality and rideability. Beta Motorcycles are the best looking bikes on the market and back it up with their superior performance. Head over to betausa.com for more information on their available models or to find a dealer near you to get yours today. And this episode, as always, is also brought to you in part by Zach Tussle. Zach Tussle is our buddy over at Raymond James Financial. He is a racer and a financial advisor that helps his clients win when it comes to retirement and financial planning. If you or someone you know wants to save and invest for their future, or is already retired and needs advice for income during retirement, Zach Tussle is always my first recommendation. Find out more by Googling Zach Tussle or on their website at financialadvisorsdenvernc.com. I say these every episode, and they're sponsors I care about. I like engaging with the sponsors. I don't want to be boring. I don't want to be supporting something that I don't support myself. That being said, being live on video adds a whole nother element to this thing. I feel incredibly weird. So I'm like messing up reading while I'm looking at it, while I even know what I'm saying. But nevertheless, that's not the point. What is the point is we're here for the weekend review with Stu. We got a lot to talk about. There's a lot going on in the off-road world. There's a lot that happened over this weekend. Obviously, we had the race down at the Mountaineer GNCC. Ben Kelly, we didn't know whether he was going to be there, whether he was not going to be there. He ended up posting right before the weekend that he was not going to be racing. So that brings this championship battle down to Jordan Ashburn with the points lead. Craig DeLong is the next closest guy, followed by Trevor Bollinger, who is also out now. And then from there, it's a gap back to some folks that have been making their returns throughout the year. One of those guys that made their return is the guy that ended up going on to win the Mountaineer GNCC. He grabbed the win yesterday on the day. It looks like he's all set and ready. We're going to try this out. I'm going to welcome in Stu Baylor. Stu, how's it going?
It's good. It's good. Well, I say it's good. I don't know what's going on. If my phone dies, it's my fault.
Uh-oh.
100%. It's the whole reason I came home. I warned you about that. It says it's charging. And now it doesn't even say it's charging. Oh, man. This is not good. This is not good. This is not a good way to start this.
Uh-oh.
Anyways, we'll go as long as we can.
I guess we'll go until it dies.
Yeah, just got the 10% warning. So hopefully the new phone lasts longer than the old phone, because I think the old phone would have already died. So
Uh-oh.
no, it's good. We've been cleaning up after the weekend and trying to just catch up, and about to turn right back around and head to Michigan National Enduro. So busy Monday, but it was a good weekend and a good way to start the week.
So let's get right into the weekend. I mean, so I didn't know this until I started listening to everybody, but did you know that after competing in 7 races since your injury, you're finally back? You're back to racing. That's the only thing I kept hearing all weekend. Stu Baylor's back at racing. I was like, well, I think this is number 7, but you're back. Welcome back.
Yeah. I mean, it was a little bit difficult. Like, I think a lot of people didn't even realize that I raced snowshoe. Obviously, when you're expected to win and you don't, people just kind of forget about you totally. They're like, oh, well, he must not have been there because he wasn't up there on the box. And obviously I was, but when you looked at anything posted after the race, you didn't see me on any of the podiums. They kind of posted the XC2 or Johnny, who got the third overall. So didn't really see me on the box at all. And I guess everybody just kind of expected, which I ended up third in XC1. And the last lap, I was just kind of cruising in. I knew it was a big gap, and nobody told me that Johnny was coming from behind. So I was a little bit upset about that. But yeah, this weekend was a good way to redeem myself after snowshoe. I knew I wasn't prepared for snowshoe and did my best I could, but I think it would have been better to have more than a couple days on the bike there. And I'm still not 100%, but we're getting there. It's just a matter of time before I kind of find my own. And this weekend, obviously, we came away with the win, but I still didn't feel like I was 100%.
Well, so that's what I was going to ask. I mean, coming back as quick as you did from the injury that you had, sustaining another injury on top of that, and coming back from that one as quick as you did, I know that you haven't been as happy as you could be with your results, just given the way that everything shook out, given the way things have happened. But you can take that all out of the way. Whether you had a bad race, whether you crashed at the beginning, whether you didn't get off the start that you wanted to, you ended the race in first place. Like, how does it feel to get that monkey off your back and come back with a win?
It's somebody asked me that earlier, like, how's it feel to get a win? The only answer I have is it feels a hell of a lot better than losing. It's not necessarily that I don't enjoy winning. It's that I expect no other. I feel like at this point, with the field that we have, like I don't want to sound arrogant, but like I feel like I should be the guy right now, judging off my last couple of years and just being realistic. I should be the guy, and when I don't win is when I feel something. When I win, like I mean, it's definitely a good feeling. Like for that brief time, right when you cross the finish line, the few corners before the finish, when you got it in the bag, like it's a great feeling. It's definitely an all time high. But then after that, it's the ride home. Like nothing changes. But when I lose, that's when everything changes. Like the whole ride home, you have a different demeanor, and I think it's because I hold myself to a different standard and have for the last couple of years of my career, and you have to expect nothing but greatness out of yourself if you want to be the best. And the days when you don't win, you have to find why you didn't win. And at snowshoe, I knew why I didn't. I mean, I lined up with it kind of in the back of my mind, but when you line up, you forget everything. It's time to go. And then if you're truly good at what you do, you find out why you didn't succeed. And at snowshoe, I knew a few different things. Like I felt like my bike setup was slightly off. I felt like my stamina towards the end was a little bit off. I felt like where I told the guys to be in the woods was a little bit off, and the way that everything went at snowshoe was just a little bit off all day. And overall, that was I think a big part of my results at snowshoe. But snowshoe is one of the tough ones where you don't have the RV, you don't have all your stuff there, so that one was difficult. This weekend we came in prepared. I mean, I was ready to go. I was ready to go on Thursday, and I told a lot of people this that I train, but preparation is key to success. If you're not prepared on Friday, you're not going to be prepared on Sunday. And this weekend my head was clear. I was where I needed to be, and on those first couple laps, I was like, man, I did everything right, and I'm falling apart. But things started clicking towards the end, and I had the conversation with some people. They asked, would you have beat Ben Kelly today? If Ben Kelly was healthy and tip top, absolutely not. Like he would have had to have a bumpy day, because I did not ride to my full potential until the end of the race. And at the end, like I really did ride very well, but it took me a long time to get going, and I think that was just a big part of not being on the bike and not necessarily not being on the bike, but being at the GNCCs for the first half of the season.
Man, I thought today was the day. I thought this was gonna be the first time. Like, pump, got the win, and here we are still. Oh, I want to beat Ben. But I mean, I guess that's the mentality that's drove you to this point in your career.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like for me, obviously I enjoy winning. Like and one day I'll look back and love every moment. But for right now, I have to be hard and I have to be critical on myself. And um, had Ben been there, had he been there this weekend, I don't know that I would have been able to beat him. Would would it have changed the way that I rode? Potentially. Would I have been able to ride a little bit more aggressive towards the end? I definitely think. I mean, once I got in the lead, I slowed down just a little bit. I watched my pit boards and I stayed where I needed to be. But I was also a little bit on the tired side, so I was like, you know what, we've got this in the bag. I knew the pace those guys were riding, and I could maintain it to the end. And um, I just it's hard for me to sit here and say that if Ben were there, that I could have beat him. It would have been a tall order. I mean, if he was there and healthy, I think it would have been pretty difficult. I mean, Ben and I have battled on that exact racetrack now for 4 years, or this would have been year four. And the first year I led until the finish, but Ben, that was his first race out of XC2, and I think about 9/10 of a mile from the finish, I ended up breaking down, and he got that first win. And this track's been very good to me, so we'll see how Ohio treats me. I think that'll be the tell-all on whether I can consistently do it. But regardless, this weekend was solid. It was just I felt like I should have been able to do it a little bit sooner, and um, I think it just comes with racing and being out there, and I haven't had that experience this year really since February.
So, as you're first, let's start off. So you started fifth, or you came through the first time in fifth, and you started chipping away time after that before you moved into the lead. How did the first half of the race go? I know you kind of alluded to it a little bit on the podium there.
Yeah, so right um, right off the start, the bike didn't fire. It fired and it flamed out, and we I think both myself and my teammate were last going in the corner and end of the first corner, and then we hit the woods. I made some passes pretty quick, and I think I moved up to around fourth. And I was right behind Josh Toth and kind of pressuring those guys right off the lead. I could see the leaders, and I could see that Ricky was trying to make a break, and I wanted to get through Toth and Ashburn, and I just lost the rear end really quick and ended up facing backwards down a hill. By the time I got back up, I could see the XC2 guys at the bottom of the hill. So it was just so slick. I literally couldn't even stand up. So and this was 2 miles in. Um, I ran back up towards the front. I fell over again. Got back behind, I think, Grant and Ben Nelko, which was last in XC1, and then came back through a third time. Got up to the rear wheel of Ashburn, which was sitting. He was sitting second at the time, and lost the rear wheel again in the bike only section. And as I was picking my bike up, I look up and I see Liam Draper coming by, and I'm like, holy shit, this is going to be a long day. And then I was thinking back, like, dude, I just got a pit board minus 26 to Ricky. Like, these guys are fucking rolling. Like, they're hauling ass. So I jumped up real quick and tried to get to the rear wheel of the XC2 guys and watched those guys battle for a bit. And then I come through the finish, and as I come around where the start tied into the woods, I had another pretty big crash, and it just my front end stopped. I went over the bars. My handlebar stuck into my pants, and I couldn't get my handlebar out of my pants. And luckily, a spectator picked me up. I was getting stung by fire or by yellow jackets at the same time, so it was nightmare.
Where was that at on the track?
It was right before the rock garden, right off the start. So go into the start. You come onto the track. There's kind of a ditch. You turn left into a piece of woods, maybe 200 feet long. Hop back out, then a long off camber down to the rock garden that we had on camera around the 1 mile mark or something like that. So I crashed there, and when I got up, I was 30 seconds behind the XC2 guys, and I don't know why, but the yellow jacket that stung my neck pissed me off something awful. And from there on, I rode with a motive. And, I didn't ride sketchy or dangerous. I made a few mistakes here and there, but things just started clicking. The faster I went, the easier the track got. And I was able to carry a lot of speed and find some outside lines that a lot of guys weren't taking. And I made quick work of the class and was able to get back up to the front. And at that midway point, I got right to the rear wheel of Ashburn, who was right behind Ricky, and it happened really quick. I think the lap would have been the lap that everybody gassed. They still had like 20 seconds on me coming out of the pits. Well, Ashburn probably had 5 or 6, and then Ricky had probably 20. And when I got up to him, the 20 seconds dwindled away like really quick in a very short period of time with not really much track in between there. So I'm not really certain what happened to Ricky in that little period. But we all kind of got in a train and we were cruising, and I looked back and Thad was on my rear wheel. Like I thought a lapper was hanging up with us, but yeah, I looked back and I'm like, the hell? I was like, oh, Craig's here. I looked back again. I was like, that didn't look like Craig's riding style. Like Craig usually sits down a lot and like kind of over the front with his elbows down, and this guy was all square and like solid. And I was like, no, that's the hell. He's drunk. Like, no, I was honestly, I was really surprised to see that up there. Like his, I know he had a major injury, and at least I could kind of come back after a couple months, and I don't think that could really do anything until maybe 4 or 5 months. So I was really, really surprised and kind of stoked to see him up there. I mean, the guys that we were racing with are guys that I grew up on minis with. So really cool. And we all kind of got in a train, and there was a lot of chaos going on with the lappers. And I feel like sometimes when I get stuck, not necessarily get stuck, but when I get in a group of guys like that, I get stuck in their lines, and my outsides were really fast and working really well. And for some reason, I rode with blinders behind those guys. So I started getting pretty impatient, and I was able to make a couple passes really quick and get to the front. I think I passed Ricky or Ashburn and Ricky in maybe 5 turns. We went by both of those guys, and was able to find that flow again. And I knew that at that point, like both of those guys looked a little bit tired, and I had just enough in the tank that I could try to break away. And that's what I did. Just put my head down for as long as I could. And then as I started to fatigue, like I could feel it. Like the mistakes started to happen, and I was like, all right, I just got to calm down. Like these guys are tired too, so don't need to push it any further. And from there, I just watched pit boards and managed the race.
And so you've been doing this for a long time. You've had success at all stages of your career, but you go down in February, I think it was, at Big Buck. Was it February or March? February, right? Yeah. So you go down at Big Buck, and then you come back at the National Enduros, and you're racing those, and then you come back at Snowshoe. Snowshoe, everything is different. You start 4 or 5 rows back. You're kind of battling with time adjustment. You're passing people, but you don't know where you're at according to the clock. What did it feel like just to be right there in the midst of the battle, to be back like authentic GNCC racing? You see a guy, you pass a guy, you know you're in front of him. What was the feeling like?
I mean, the racing part of it's like that's where I struggled. That's where I've been the best in the past, is being able to make my moves at the right time, at least in the past 2 years. I've been really good at making my moves at the right time and kind of catching my breath when I didn't want to make a move. This time, I think I was a little bit overly aggressive. I was thinking back to Snowshoe, and I was like, man, I gotta go. And my timing was off as far as my racecraft for the first half of the race. And I knew once the XC2 guys caught up, I was like, man, I've got to reset. And I tell a lot, like obviously with the Shoals MX and a lot of the guys that I work with, like I tell them a lot, you've got to find a reset. So we like at the Shoals, I tell them 3 different things to do a reset. Either both feet on the pegs for 5 corners, get 5 deep breaths, or ride without rear brakes for just a little bit. And all it does is kind of reset your mind. Like we're not over pushing the track, we're not overriding the track. We're going to ride the track the way that it needs to be ridden. And when you add your controls back in, or once you get your last breath and you kind of you're back focused, it just puts you in a different, a more clear state. Like, hey, we're just at another day, another practice day. Nail our marks. Let's go racing. And that's kind of what I had to do this weekend. And it's one of the most difficult things to do as a racer. But when you're in the midst of that battle, a lot of times you get caught up in the battle. And if you get caught up too much, you find yourself riding the wrong lines or making mistakes because you're mirroring the rider in front of you. And that was, I think that was the biggest thing that I had to go through this weekend was riding my own race in the midst of a battle.
Yeah. So you're going through it, and then you make your way out into the lead. Led the last couple laps, but I mean, what's your mind thinking as you're coming up to it? I mean, like I said, I hate to beat a dead horse. I know we've talked about the injury a lot, and I know we've kind of talked about your progression throughout the year. But one thing I noticed too is like with all of our conversations and us kind of doing this for the first time this year on OTP, and people getting to hear this side of you. There's been a lot of comments, I'm sure, on your end, on both ends about. Well, it's easy to say when you're not out there. It's easy to talk about these guys when you're watching it on TV. And now you work through everything. You build back up to this point. You're leading the way. You're on the cusp of getting a win, returning back to that win column. What's going through your mind, and does any of that cross your mind in the moment, or is it just a race?
That's a tough one. Like, I know my competition. First off, I study my competition. I'm always prepared as to who I'm going up against. If you watch the interview, I don't think Mason's posted it yet, but if you watch what I told Mason before the race, you'll watch and think about exactly what unfolded on the race and say, holy shit, this guy had it dialed from day one. I knew where I needed to be. I wanted to be in 4th place for the first 2 laps.
You wanted to be in 4th place.
I wanted to be in 4th place.
Who was the top 3 in your mind?
I knew Ricky was going to be really good, and I knew Ashburn was going to be really good. Personally, I thought that I would see a little bit more out of Craig DeLong, but I think he had a pretty big get off at the end of lap 1. I missed it, but I think Liam said that it happened right in front of him. Like, I guess Ashburn went around the hill. Craig was coming up the hill and didn't see him coming and got T-boned in the side. So, but my thing was I didn't want to lose the leader. I didn't want to lose sight of the leader. And it was one of those tracks, and it was difficult to lead. You didn't really want to lead early on, and I knew that coming in. I had no intentions of leading. And it was. I also said that Johnny G is going to try to go to the front. Didn't expect Liam to pull Johnny to the front, but I said Johnny's going to be hungry. He's going to want to go to the front as well. And, people say, oh, it's easy to talk about these guys when you're not there. But, I mean, I may not always call the results right, but as far as Racecraft, I can always tell you where you want to be on the track. And it was just another, to me, it was just another day of having the right mindset on where you need to be at what time. It was coming back from the injury, I had a lot of time to study what I wanted to see, and I think I could I could see, like, for me, I could see my weaknesses from last year, and I've tried doing some different things with bike setup. I've tried doing some different things with my riding throughout the week, and the only thing that I haven't had good experience with so far is Racecraft. I mean, that's something you have to be there in the moment. So,
So far
you
this
know,
year, you mean?
yeah, so far this year. So, this year, like this race, I mean, even snowshoe, it's so different because you're not you're not starting with the guys, so you don't really know where you are. But like this weekend, I knew, I thought that Ashburn, honestly, I thought Ashburn would be like riding around in fifth place. To be honest, like he does have a championship in the bag pretty much at this point. All he had to do was make sure he rode with Craig Long. Like, I really expected to see him kind of settling back there and just cruising. Did not expect to see him continue to push late in the race. Like, even he and I got in a pretty good battle there for a while, and did not expect to see him wanting to push the envelope like that, knowing a championship's on the line. But so I knew he'd be up front early, but I really didn't expect to see that late in the race, and he was still getting after it. And I would have put money that it would have come down to me and Ricky before the race, or me and Johnny, and it was it was just a matter of being at the right place at the right time, and luckily I was able to capitalize at the right time.
And so you mentioned Johnny, and I know you kind of gave him some crap up on the podium. Got a good pop out of the crowd there. Do what?
I had to. We're boys, so I think he took it a little bit offensively. Looking at his face when I said it, I think I caught him off guard. I think he was a little bit hurt.
That's it. When he was sitting back there, because basically I was the in between point between you guys. And when you said that to him, I looked back at him, and yeah, it looked like he got caught off guard, and then gave you the one finger salute. But man, probably just as surprised as you were to see them. I was equally as surprised. I filmed everything at the start, and then I made my way down to the bridge at like the 9 mile mark, and I'm seeing like the first couple guys go by, and then all of a sudden there's Johnny, there's Liam, and they're already up there. What was
they
your
were
thoughts?
physically. I want to say they were physically third overall. They were physically third on the track when they came by me.
Yeah,
because I was physically third behind Ricky and Ashburn. So, actually, no, I think Toth was just in front of Ashburn. So they were physically fourth. But I mean, we were right there. Like for second overall, they were right there with Toth. So, and physically. So, yeah, it was tight. It was crazy.
and then he stayed up there for the majority of the race because, like you were mentioning on the podium, where was that you guys got together? And I know that you said that you guys linked up, and then you kind of dropped him a little bit. That's what got the pop from everybody. But where was all that at?
Yeah, so Johnny and it was kind of, I watched their battle for a little bit. So after I got stung by the Yellow Jackets, I was down for a good 30 seconds, and then I just started sprinting, and I had gained 30 seconds in about 4 miles. So I was going extremely fast, and I didn't expect, like every other rider that I had passed through the way didn't keep up at all. And then when I passed Liam and Johnny, Johnny linked right up to me, and I could feel him, see him. He was right there. Like we would kind of play a little bit of a cat and mouse. Like I rode a tire that was really good in the rocks. He was on a tire that was better in the rut. So he would gain a little bit. I would gain a little bit, back and forth, and it was he never got back around me, but after he let me by, like he was right there, and we were running a really, really good pace. I think we cut the lead from, at one point I was a minute and a half down, and I want to say we had run it down the last time through the finish that he was behind me. I think going into lap 3. I saw his pit board that came out. He was still +5 on the overall, so we were 55 seconds from him. But he stayed with me for another half of that lap, and by that point, we were within 30 seconds of the leaders physically. So he would have had a 32nd overall. And then he said that he made some pretty big mistakes back to back there, I believe on lap 3. And I mean, the pace that we were running was like really fast. Like it was really good. And I could not necessarily see, but I could feel where he was on the track. And since we rode somewhat close together for over a lap, with knowing where he was going faster than I was on the track, I could kind of sense him over to my left, over to my right, whatever it was. It allowed me to find the faster lines for that next lap, and that was when I was able to capitalize on the next guy, the next group of guys there on lap 4. But it was tough. Like that was the only real racing I did all day was with Johnny, and aside from that, we got in a group pretty quick with those guys and was able to go through it pretty quick. But a lot of times on a track like that, you want to be in a group so that you can find different lines.
No, and that, like you said, how everyone kind of freight trained together. It seems like for the majority of the race, you could kind of throw a blanket over everybody. It's just how close everyone was and staying with each other throughout the race. Real quick, just for people that are coming on and joining, if you want to drop some questions that you may have in the chat, we can try to get to those as well, since we're live now, so we can have a little bit of that opportunity for you guys to get some of your questions in. But Stu, I know that there's only 3 more races left in the GNCC season. Johnny is a guy that's been right there, and not to go too far off subject, just while we were talking about it, he was a guy that 2 years ago was leading the championship race and then ended up getting hurt at the end of the year. Last year, he gets it done, gets the number 1 plate. This year ends up getting hurt again, but he's won every race that he's come back to. Next year, we'll see him up in the XC1 class. What do you think, not only of Johnny, but just XC1 as a whole next year? Everyone has that opportunity to heal up. There's going to be a lot of changes, a lot of different people on different bikes, some people moving up. Where do you think the XC1 class as a whole is at going into next year?
It's good to see we're going to have a pretty good-sized XC1 class next year. I think the first 5 rounds, you're going to see a lot of different guys on the podium. I think there will be, by round 6, there will be 1 or 2 that stand out, that have kind of stayed consistent. And at that point, the guys that are still in it for the championship will be the guys that you'll see on the podium. The guys that are kind of out of it will be fighting for that 3rd place position. I think with the bike changes, a lot of guys are going to have a head full of steam, but at the same time, there's going to be a group of guys that are going to use those first couple races to learn their new machine. So that's why I'm saying there could be some different changes, but by round 5 or 6, you're going to see 1 or 2 that stand out in particular. And, with the bike changes, like, it's easy to say, oh, I can go testing. And I mean, the tracks that I've got at the Shoals are just as rough or rougher than any GNCC. But until you ride it for 3 hours straight, you don't really know. I mean, there's been days where I've lined up a suspension that I thought was phenomenal. I put it on a racetrack, and it was so stiff that I couldn't make it 3 hours. I mean, it would beat the hell out of me. For an hour and a half, it was great. The second I get winded, I'm not charging as hard, and I can't hit the bumps as hard, so it's not using the stroke. It's deflecting. It's wasting too much energy. So I think it will take a little bit of time for these guys, for everybody that's making big changes, to figure out the bikes. But I don't think that by round 5 we'll see anything crazy. Like, I think everything will kind of settle back in.
Makes a lot of sense. You mentioned some stuff there about your suspension. How much do you change your suspension throughout the year? I know we kind of talked about it before, where you run a couple different setups and change those depending on the track. But I wanted to ask you about, 1, your suspension, and 2, I know you made a last-minute tire choice for the race this weekend. What went into that decision, and what did you end up running?
So, suspension, I have 4 different variations that we run throughout the season, from sand to rocks. and sometimes I cross like a fork with a shock, and we'll move some stuff around to make it suit the terrain that we're in. I'm big about testing, and I think there's a great setting for each track. A lot of guys don't like change because they don't know what to expect if they change too much. So, me personally, I feel like especially at GNCCs, I can start out a little bit slower and learn my bike as we go. Um, so I would prefer try to make my suspension as best as possible and go ride in the local area, which is what I did this week. Rode up about an hour from the track, rode some rocks, and made my way over to the race from there and used the best setting that I had come up with. Same with the tire. We had rode a Dunlop 53, which was really phenomenal in the rocks, not very good in the mud. So as the rain came down, the track got muddy. I was on the fence on whether we made the right decision or not. We flipped a quarter on it, said that the tire was still the best decision, and kind of went from there. And for the first half of the race, it was not the best decision. The mud was tacking up and kind of clumping up, and I got a lot of wheel spin and a lot of mud packed in the tire. By the end of the race, all of the dirt and mud and loam was beat off the track, and it was just completely hard base, slick as shit, rocky underneath. The tire really paid off in the second half. So, it was just good that the tire kind of came around to the track, because if not, I would have been I would have been in a mess.
Man, so one thing I also noticed, and it wasn't very hot, and the track did open up a little bit compared to what we've seen in the past, but a lot of people were still coming off like super winded. I saw a lot of people that are winded, tired. Is that a product of summer break, or was there something that stood out about the Mountaineer track this year that made it more difficult?
I mean, me personally, I'm in phenomenal shape, so like I feel it. No, the track was actually really demanding. It was one of those tracks like you never got a break. Like at snowshoe, you get really difficult sections, but then you follow it up with a road bed. So you've got a chance to kind of catch your breath, lower that heart rate, get back and get back after it. This weekend, it was like gnarly ass rock garden that should never have been gnarly, but for some reason it was this year. And it was like, all right, gnarly rock garden, and then followed by a rut that has 16 hooks in it. And if you stand up, you're moving back and forth and shifting your weight back and forth, staying extremely low on the bike. So you're basically doing a wall set through there. And then you follow that back up with a hill climb where you're all over the bike and there's ruts everywhere. And then you follow that up with a downhill that you can hardly hold on. And it's like every time you thought you could get a break, like it just wasn't there. The track was just the most physically demanding that I've like. The only other track I can compare to it would be Limestone. It's been probably 5-6 years ago. It was gnarly rutted like that, and it was extremely difficult. And this weekend was that same way. Like it was just ongoing. Every time you came around a corner, you try to catch your breath, and then before you know it, you're holding on for dear life again.
And so speaking of the Limestone and just kind of going back on the year and looking back on it, but I think it was 2018 or 2019 where you got off to a quick start, one big buck. We're leading the points at the Limestone, and that's ended up when you having some medical or some health issues. That was at the Limestone, right?
Yeah. I think Caleb had actually overtaken me. I think we were 5 or 6 points apart at that point. That was 2017.
2017. So going back and forth, I know that you've had some time where you've been off the bike and kind of watching the competition from afar. Nothing like this season, both from your perspective and then also from everyone's perspective. Looking back at the injury, does it make it tougher being at this point in the season and seeing what happened with everyone else? I mean, Ben, Strang, Trevor. I know that once again, beating a dead horse, the injuries have been something that have came up, but it's kind of hard to not talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, like you've it's so tough to say because you know Thad can sit here and say, "Man, if Caleb would
And
have
Thad,
had
yeah.
one injury, I would have got that championship in those 8 years." I mean, he was right there. Um, Charlie could sit back and say, "Man, if I wouldn't have broke my wrist, Caleb would have never been Caleb." I can look back to 2012 as a 16-year-old kid who was top 3 overall and said, "Man, if I would have never had that year and a half where I went through 8 surgeries, like maybe Caleb would have never been Caleb." Um, I guess in a nutshell, injuries happened. This year was absolutely crazy. And yes, there are times where I sit back and say, man, I was the guy to beat. Like, flat out for the last 2 years, almost to date, this weekend, 2 years ago, I was the man to beat. Like, yeah, didn't win the championship, whatever. You can't say that I wasn't the guy to beat. Like, nobody can look back and I mean it's facts, like black and white. I was the guy to beat. So I've got to sit here and say, damn, this should have been mine. But you know what? I made a bad decision with stiff suspension and a beefed up motor before Big Buck. Had I not, maybe I would. Maybe I would be the guy to beat this year. But that's on me, and I know that, and I can't sit back and look at it like that. Like I've got to keep looking ahead. When I'm done and I'm retired, this year will probably eat at me. And when I was injured with my neck, I can tell you that this year definitely ate at me. But at this point, moving forward, all I can look at is the future. And, um, I just hope that next year we don't have any DNFs and I'm up front and I'm in contention for a championship. So, yeah, you definitely think about it. Like to answer your question, it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're straying, I mean, hell, probably Caleb's looking back going, man, I should have raced this year. I could have won a championship. I
Yeah.
could have made what 9, 10. I don't even fucking know. Uh, but I'm sure that everybody's thinking about the same thing, from myself to Strang to Dad to Caleb. Um, but injuries happen, and you really just can't look at that side of things. Like, do I feel like I was the fastest guy last year? Absolutely. Do I feel like I was the fastest guy the year before? Absolutely. Um, do I feel like I was the fastest guy this year? I really do think I was. Um, I just never had the right opportunity, and it at the end of the day, whether it was my decisions or bad luck, the butterfly effect, whatever you want to call it, shit happens, and the worst thing you can do is look in the past, and let that weigh on you. If I worried about the past, I would have retired a long time ago. I mean, I've had, I would say that of any racer current in GNCC and probably, of the pros, probably past that I know of, I've had more surgeries and more injuries than any other rider out there. And that's fact. Like there's no arguing. I mean, I've had like, I would say that I'm probably the only rider in double digits in surgeries, and I'm still doing it. Like, if I looked back and I wanted to sit there and say, man, coulda, shoulda, woulda, like I could do that. I could do that back to when I was a kid. But it's that's one of those things. As a racer, you got to block it out. Like, there's still times where the fear sets in. There's still days where you're hauling ass down a roadbed going, damn, what if? What
Yeah.
if? Like, fuck, that could be bad. But no, I mean, as a racer, no matter what the situation scenario is, you've got to keep your eyes ahead. You can't look back.
That's such a good takeaway to come from that. And that's kind of why I wanted to ask it, just to get your perspective of it, being where you're at in your career, being where you were at 2 years ago, being where you were at last year. I mean, last year a couple things goes differently, and you have the number one plate.
Yeah.
So it's a good takeaway from it. And like you said, you can't really change anything that happened, and all we can do is look forward. But You mentioned 2 years ago was when the miraculous comeback happened, where you came out and won at the Mountaineer. I still that's a moment that I'll always remember in GNCC history. Just the emotion and everything that you had coming back from all of that, finding a bike after like 3 different tries, and finding that home for the past 2 seasons on that Yamaha. And then that's also kind of the beginning of where a certain tradition started. So, want to lead into that real quick. How dare you, man? How dare you,
Terrible person,
man? Everything you broke your neck, you come back in the season, all of a sudden you think that you can showboat when you win a race. What is wrong with you?
I at this level and at my age, I have to treat every win like the last one, and I plan on it until the end. Um, you never know when your last professional win might be, and mine may have been this weekend. So if I went out like that, then I'm happy with it. Um, to me, these guys are upset, worked up, whatever. Like, kiss my ass. My mechanic tear that bike to a frame on Monday. He does not care. And, let's look back. Let's look back in sports history. Before Dwayne Johnson was movie star, who was the biggest name in wrestling? Who did you think of if you thought of WWE?
The Rock.
Who stood out?
And Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah, you're looking at movie stars. You're looking at movie stars.
You're talking about before The Rock?
Before the movies were a thing.
Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
Actually, yeah, he's good, but movies made him.
Who?
I'm looking at Nature Boy, man. Like
North
that
Carolina's
guy stands
own.
out to me. Like he does something different than everybody else. And you know what? He may not do it for you. But guess what? The name of the game is sales. And my level, at his level, at John Daly's level, it is sales. And trackable sales at that. Me personally, I am not going to buy whatever Tiger Woods is selling. I'm not going to buy what LeBron James is selling, personally. If that's you, fine, cool, good for you. Me personally, I am looking at somebody relatable, working class, and if that's me, then great, I did my job. If it's not, cool, move on. That's the way I see it. If it doesn't change your life, don't comment. There's no need. That's just the way I see it. And maybe I'm wrong, but to me, my celebrations don't change anybody's life, including my mechanics, because, like I said, he's changing that plastic anyway. I promise. Every race on Monday, he cleans that bike. He takes every single piece all the way down to a frame, every single race. And guess what we do after into the semi, and I sign those plastics and I give them to kids. And I make every one of those kids' day when I do that. And if I'm a terrible person for that, then so be it. Because that's the terrible person that I want to be every single weekend. And if people want to judge me for that or ridicule me for that, then go ahead. When I'm driving home Sunday, I enjoy the hell out of a good Instagram fight. So if you want to comment something negative, please do. I won't remember your name on Monday, but I do enjoy the good waiting game of, is he going to comment back to this? So, no, I mean, I understand. I may not be everybody's cup of tea, but I can promise you this.
Not everybody drinks tea.
What's that?
I said, not everybody drinks tea.
Exactly. There you go. And if they do, then it may not be sweet like I drink it. I can promise you this. You set 10 bikes, 10 shirts, 10 helmets, 10 sets of goggles, whatever it may be, sit them in front of me and sit them in front of any other XC1 rider, see who sells it first. I'm a used car salesman. Come over and talk to me. Give me 10 seconds. I promise.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, at the end of the day, I do understand business. I understand marketing. That was what I was going to school for prior to or during racing when I decided to back out of it. To me, it's simple. It's business. It's marketing. It's trackable sales. Um, so
Who was calling you? We got a new deal. Is that what that was? New deal on the line.
I fuck.
Sorry, I didn't mean to get you off track. Sales, marketing, yeah.
Way to call me out, bud. Oh man. Anyways, yeah, I'll call him back later. Anyways, no, I mean it's trackable sales. Like what is this guy doing for this company? And at the end of the day, if it is racing or an image, whether it's selling bikes, that is all that matters. I do believe that in today's era, you do not have to win to sell motorcycles. With that being said, obviously I want to win,
It
but
helps.
it does, it does. Um, but I also believe that a 10th place guy who's likable will outsell a first place guy who everybody hates. Um, and yes, you can post whatever you want. You can make them look, you can make it look like whatever you want on social media. But are people going to buy from you because you're winning? I don't think that that's the case anymore. I think that social media has taken over that. So what you have to do with your social media is become an image that people are feel like they can relate to. And for me, it's easy. I just show my personal life. Uh, a lot of these racers don't, and I'm good friends with most of these racers. And a lot of them are scared to show their personal lives because the industry has them scared that what you do in your personal life isn't going to be, it's not going to be cut out for everybody. And it may not be, but you know what? Some days life's hard, some days it's easy. If you don't show that, you're not relatable. To me, like, man, I run equipment every day. I'm selling my house and about to build another one. Like, life's not easy. You watch my Instagram stories, you can see that I'm busting my ass from sun up to sundown. And a lot of guys that are in our industry can relate to that. A lot of guys are outdoors, grading, whatever it may be. They can relate to exactly what I'm doing. And I feel like that has given me a personal touch to my fan base. And another thing I kind of commented on earlier in with social media with a little spat there is I can remember being I think I was 7 years old, came to my first GNCC at Big Buck, and some riders would not sign my shirt, and I was very upset. The next team that I stopped at was actually the team that I'm riding for now. They had a semi at the time. Barry Hawk was riding for them. I want to say Charlie Mullins may have been on AMP like 250A. Randy Hawkins was still a pro, and they had one other rider, Jason Raines. Um, and they took me into the semi, signed my clothes, gave me a hat, and sent me on my way. And I remember that to this day. To me, I will always take the time out for the fans because I was the fan. I was the super fan. I was the one that wanted to go get my hat signed, my shirt signed. Like, that was me. So to this day, you know what? People can like me, hate me. I don't really care. You can hate me today, but if your kid wants to sign autograph tomorrow, if you want to come in my rig and sit down with me and BS while I'm eating dinner, I promise I won't turn you away. That's not who I am. So, that's just that's the way I see it. I mean, I've been blessed with the position that I'm in, and I know that, and I understand that, and I respect that, and I don't want to ever feel like I don't want anybody to ever feel like I'm unapproachable. So I do the best that I can to put myself out there and do those things.
No, and I agree with all of that, and that's kind of how you built this brand. I mean, look at the times you bring a box of Baylor heavy stuff and it sells out instantly after the line's halfway down pro row. I haven't seen
Yeah,
that happen anywhere else.
yeah, definitely. I mean, that's that. Like I said, my fans. I think that personal touch, and my fans are awesome. Like, um, it was it was really. I think the comeback, is what created the the fan base that I have today. And it's not just followers and it's not just fans. Like they're real people that are at the races. They're the guys that are going to work on Monday. They're the guys that are calling me up on Sunday. Like the the guys that support me, the people that cheer for me on Sunday and pull for me on even on Sunday when I'm not winning. Like there's a relationship that I have with my fans right now that um, it's almost unexplainable. Like they're die hard, and like I said, I feel like a lot of that comes to being relatable, and it's something that as a pro racer you're almost shunned when you start doing it. Like you don't want to be relatable. You don't want to be real in this game. You want to be fake and you want to lie as much as possible. And if the motor breaks down, you want to say it was a clutch failure. And if the clutch goes, you want to say that you sucked water. And if your brakes fail, you want to blame it on the rider. Like it's the way that we're taught from the time that we're 13 years old in this game is to lie and don't be personable. Be somebody else.
Yep.
Be lighter. Don't be fat. Be skinny and be a perfect professional racer. Don't cuss. Don't drink. Don't do any of those things that real normal people do because you may be looked at by one person who doesn't like it. And personally, I can't stand Ryan Dungey's interviews. Like, dude, shoot me. Like, I'm sorry, but man, I would listen to Marvin Muscan 10 times over before one Ryan Dungey interview. Nobody's that perfect.
Ryan
And I said at
Dungey.
an autograph signing, he's not that cool. He's not that nice. Like, just saying, throwing it out there.
My
He's
interpretation
man,
of Ryan.
try to have a conversation with him. He's not there.
Yeah. My interpretation of Ryan Dungey is he was the kid in high school that reminded your teacher that homework was due at the end of class. That's how I describe
it. And told on you for not listening. Hey, Tyler's sleeping again.
Yeah. Exactly. But I mean, kind of going back to what you said looping your bike out at the finish line doesn't affect anybody else but you. I do disagree with that. Everyone looks for it. Everyone expects it. I have seen kids at Strider bike races loop their Striders out, loop their Stasics out. I've seen other pro riders' kids say that they were doing like Stu and send their bike backwards down a hill. It's this thing that's kind of taken over. And then I was actually standing at the finish line with Jade waiting on you, and I was like, is he going to loop it out? And she's like, I don't know. I was like, well, I need to know if I need to stand over there or stand over here. And I just had a feeling. And then sure enough, it happened. But it's all that kind of stuff that kind of builds into this branding and builds into that. And one of the other things, and I think this is something that we haven't talked about as far as the social media influence and dealing with the fans and all that, but there's got to be some comfort in knowing that no matter where you're at, no matter who you're around, whether you're doing the show, whether you're winning a race, whether you're in the pits or whether you're at Walmart, you are the same person. What you see is what you get. So if people decide that you're not their cup of tea, there's not going to be any other thing. There's not going to be something separate. Where I feel like a lot of people, and I mean, I'm guilty of it myself, being in the public eye, announcing, doing the show, this kind of stuff. Like, I worry about what I'm doing outside of here or what I'm saying on here because how it would reflect on the show. But I feel like a lot of people that fall under that corporate umbrella, that have to be the clean-cut people, that have to put on the facade when they're at the races, I feel like that makes them a little bit more on edge anywhere else. Like, they can't let their hair down and have fun over fear of someone seeing their real self because, God forbid, anyone find out that you have any personality. But for you, there's got to be some comfort in knowing no matter where you're at, no matter what you're doing, it's not an act.
Yeah, there definitely is. Like, to me, it happened. I was that clean cut, yes sir, no sir. I mean, it was. I was as clean cut as I came because I was told to lie and not to be myself. I was told if I was over 200 pounds, I could never do this sport. Um, I'm I'm pretty sure I'm weighing it at 220 right now, and I'm doing just fine. So, uh, now
More traction.
I still work out. Like, yeah, whatever. Everybody wants to say, "Oh, he's out of shape." Like, come train with me. I will outlift. Give me three XC1 riders, and I'll outperform all three of them at once. Like, as far as weights go, like I still I can hold my own. I ride every day. I'm not going to say I'm big boned. I think that's bullshit. I am definitely too chunky to be a professional racer, flat out.
I saw you
Don't
on the
know
Mick
why.
Ultras, man. You're making headway.
I know. I burn more calories. I can promise. I watch my Garmin every day. I burn more calories than I take in every single day. And for some reason, it just doesn't come off. So whatever. Now, granted, when I broke my neck, there was a period of my life where Crumble Cookie moved to Greenwood or Simpsonville, and yeah. Anyways, uh, but no, like that whole just being myself. Like there was a point in my career where I was 18, 19, done everything right, and did exactly what I was supposed to do up until that point. Had a factory ride, got injured, but for winning a championship, I went out and finished that, won the championship, came back a year and a half later, finished out the GNCCs that season. Not my best year, but I had a pretty bad injury. 5 back-to-back surgeries on my wrist, and as soon as I came back, broke my hand at TKO, and it was a rough year, and I did everything right, and I just didn't know what happened. I lost my factory ride. Like, KTM called, hey, you're done next year. They waited until December to do it, and I didn't have anything, and at that point I was like, man, like, what am I going to do? Like, I don't have a way to move forward from here, and I was like, well, I'm just going to be myself. Like, I'm going to do something different. Started announcing, started my own team, running my own program. Then I went to SRT. And the whole way through, I was like, just doing it for myself. And from there forward, it's like, I went back to racing like I raced until I was 13, 14, and kind of became the guy that people were looking at. And I went back to having fun. And once I learned how to have fun again, my results followed.
So how does that work in 2022, today's day and age? All of these things as a sponsor, I would see as a benefit. But unfortunately, I feel like a lot of sponsors don't. What do you run into with that now? When you said before you were talking to people and kind of throwing some feelers out. What percentage would you say is kind of turned off by it from a professional standpoint, and what percentage would you say is the marketability that they see in you as a positive thing?
We're 50-50. I mean, a lot of the people in this industry are stuck in the 90s. Um, they think that you have to be clean cut corporate puppet. The new crowd that's moved in understands social media, likability, and trackable sales. Um,
And it's not
those
going
guys
anywhere.
love it. What's that?
I said, and it's not going anywhere.
It's not. It's not. It's only blowing up. It's only growing from here. Um, the new crowd loves it. The bigger corporations like it. Some of the older people don't, and some of the people within the bigger corporations get nervous on what I might say as an individual. But as long as I can represent my brands, perform, and do what I'm supposed to do, then I don't think you can argue with that.
No, and I mean, like you said, it speaks for itself when you're riding around in 5th or 6th place and you're getting more cheers than the leader, and you're getting people lining up down Pro Road to buy a koozie and a hat from you.
Yeah,
it's hard to argue.
Definitely.
But man, I know we've kept you for a while here. Appreciate you coming on and talking, especially after such a big weekend. I know it's got to be a fun time to get back in that win column, but it's right back to work this coming weekend. Did you do anything to celebrate? Did you do anything different to soak in this win?
I drove home, and I'm drinking a couple beers tonight. I think I'm out, about 2 of them. So
working at the Shoals earlier today.
Yeah.
Come on, man, this could be your last pro win. You said it yourself.
I know. I'll celebrate. There will be time for it. I'll celebrate in Michigan on Wednesday when I get up there. No, just catching up with the Shoals and hanging out with you. So we'll celebrate. Maybe I'll stop up by your place on the way north.
All right, perfect. I got a cold beer for you.
Perfect. I'll take it.
What, you heading up to Michigan tomorrow?
Wednesday morning, first thing.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Well, cool, man. Well, wish you all the luck this weekend. Sitting third in points over there. How you feel about the Michigan track? You like it?
Love it. One of my favorite trains. So I just gotta hope that the other guy, maybe I can have somebody finish between me and Grant and Ryder. So we'll see.
Toth, come on, we need you.
I know it. Need it.
Well, cool, man. Thanks for taking the time out. Big congratulations once again on the weekend, and wish you good luck going into this coming weekend.
All right. Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
See ya.
All right. See ya.
So, now you can see my computer screen. Let's keep this thing rolling a little bit. This was new. We figured this out as we were going live, so kind of made it happen. Obviously, got some bugs to work out, some kinks to work out, but overall, I think it went pretty well. I think it's cool to be able to see the face and see the interactions. And also, it's cool to have this chat thing on here. I think this will end up being pretty cool. We got a couple comments in here from old Woo Pig. He said, what color bike are you riding in 2023? If you listen to OTP, you already know the answer to that question. But if I asked Stu live on air, it would kind of give up all my sources. And I can't give up my sources because then if you give up your sources, you don't get any more sources. So couldn't really ask that one. How many seconds did Stu count? Big Tom says, how many seconds did Stu count when he stalled out in the rock garden? I meant to ask that. It just completely slipped my mind. I will say, doing this thing live on camera, way more nerve-wracking. I feel like my questions today stunk. I feel like there's a lot of stuff that I missed. There's a lot of stuff that I'm kind of monitoring. I got a computer here. I got a computer here. I got notes here. I got my phone here. A lot of stuff going on. And so I'm trying to monitor all of that and do all that I can. And it kind of gets in the way of being in the conversation, being here now in the conversation. So it's all a learning experience. Can only go up from here. The more we do it, the more comfortable we'll get, and the better we'll be. So my goal is to have every guest be able to FaceTime in so that we can see them and get to know them a little bit better. But no, it was cool. I liked it. Hopefully you guys liked it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it a little bit. So right now I'm still going in and changing some stuff to get rid of all the fuzziness that was in the background here. But yeah, so this was the first live weekend review with Stu. And like I said, hopefully we can keep these rolling, keep them getting better. I know usually I do a little bit of a diatribe. Maybe that's not a good word. A little bit of a rundown of the race weekend and what happened. I didn't do that beforehand just because Stu was on the line with me here as we were getting everything dialed in and ready to go. So we'll talk about it right now. We'll talk about the results. Obviously, taking the win, it was Stu Baylor in that XC1 class. Jordan Ashburn, the new points leader, finished in second place overall on the day, and then third place overall in his return to racing. It was Thad Duvall. So I think we're going to have Thad on the show tomorrow. So for OTP Tuesday, I think we're going to be able to chat with Thad. So that'll be pretty cool. XC2, Johnny Girroir keeps his win streak alive. He's won every single race that he has showed up to race at ever since he got injured. In the number 2 spot is our XC2 points leader, the white plates on the green bike. It looks sick. It was Lyndon Snodgrass. He holds on for the number 2 spot. And then Rui Barbosa and Cody Barnes, the teammates on that Honda team, they battle down to the wire, but Rui Barbosa ends up snagging the 3rd place spot, ends up on the podium once again. Rui's having a heck of a year this year, and such a nice guy, so grateful. You can tell that he's grateful to be in the position he's in. He's grateful to be over here racing his dirt bike, and you're hard-pressed to find a nicer and more appreciative rider, than Rui Barbosa. So it was cool to see him up on the podium once again. And then in our FMF XC3 class, I accidentally said FMF. Maybe, hey, it is up to something season. We've been in talks with FMF, so maybe we will be saying FMF more in the future, but we'll continue on with that one. Taking the win, it was none other than Brody Johansson. Brody Johnson gets it done and wins that XC3 class once again. In the number 2 spot, the beta boy, Jay Lipscomb. 2 podiums in a row, but this time in the number 2 spot. So moving on up the leaderboard there is Jay Lipscomb figuring that bike out and putting it up on the box. That was super cool to see. I was pumped to see Jay on the podium once again. We saw him on the podium at Snowshoe in 3rd place. This week we saw him on the podium in 2nd place. And in the number 3 spot, rounding things out, the 2020 XC3 class champion, Zach Hayes. Zach Hayes goes out there and puts it on the box as well. So all 3 of those guys were right next to each other. They were battling back and forth and swapping places all the way down into the last lap. So Zach Hayes holds on for that number 3 spot and stays very much in the battle for this XC3 title. I believe Zach Hayes is actually leading the points there. So a former champion in that XC3 class and holding on to it now as we move into the final 3 rounds. That is going to be some battles to watch between Brody Johnson and Zach Hayes because this XC3 title is up for grabs. Who is going to come home with it? We're all going to see. Other than that, I got a couple of notes here. Johnny Girroir, we saw him leading the overall on adjusted time, and we saw him work his way all the way up to third and close to 2nd physically on the track as he was in that 1st place overall with the time adjustment. Still to this day, nobody has ever won a race from the 2nd row. If I was a betting man, I do bet on sports, but there's not a way to bet on GNCC. But if there was a way to bet on GNCC, I think I would feel pretty confident in putting some money down that we will see a rider win the overall from the XC2 class, and I think that rider will be Johnny Girroir. He was close to it. He was set up for it this weekend and ended up running into some issues. Still got the win in the XC2 class, but I don't know. I got a feeling. So we got 3 more races. Once again, that would be history. We've never seen that happen. Of course, Lyndon Snodgrass, we've seen him on overall podiums several times. We've seen him 2nd overall. We've seen him did he get 2nd overall? I want to say he did. He's definitely been on overall podiums. He ended the year last year with an overall podium in the 3rd place spot at that muddy Ironman mess. So Lyndon Snodgrass is another guy that could do it. But between them two, I think that that they could do it. Liam Draper. Liam had a heck of a ride this weekend. Him and Johnny were up to 3rd place physically. You heard Stu and I talk about it just a little bit ago. That was really cool. By the 9-mile marker on the 1st lap, they had moved their way up into 3rd and 4th physically on the track. And so they were both pulling each other along. That's when Johnny was in the overall lead, and Liam was right there behind him. So it was cool to see Liam to put on such a good ride. I read a little bit of what he posted and how he ended up fading back throughout the rest of the day. But if he can put that together, I mean, he's a force to be reckoned with in that XC2 class. Just got to get it under control for 3 hours, and he's a contender. So it's cool to see a good ride out of him. Another big thing, we're going to talk about this more next week heading into the next GNCC, but there is the possibility that Jordan Ashburn can wrap up this championship and become the 2022 XC1 and overall bike champion 2 rounds early. That would be absolutely insane. And I was talking to Chris Landers, the owner of the Magna One Motorsports team and Magna One Lubricants. They are on the verge of history. They are a satellite team. They are not a full factory effort. They are a satellite effort, and they are on the verge of winning 3 professional titles in the same year. Jordan Ashburn, unless something crazy happens, is in a very good spot to win this championship. Like I said, he has a chance to wrap it up 2 rounds early in Ohio. But Brody Johnson is in a thick battle with Zach Hayes for the XC3 title. So there's 2 titles on the bike, and then Bryson Neal on the quad side of things is in second place in points. He might be in first place in points. He has the possibility to win the overall XC1 title. Could you imagine the overall quad and overall bikes coming down to one team? I don't think anybody's ever had a team where they won XC1 in quads and XC2 on bikes, let alone a satellite team on both ends. So that Magna One team, they are on the verge of something special. There's something to keep an eye on as well. But Jordan Ashburn only needs to score 4 points on Craig DeLong going into the next race to wrap up the title. 2 rounds early. Can you believe that? What a year it's been. What a crazy year that it's been, to where this is what it comes down to. But I was talking to Jordan a little bit over the weekend, and of course he was on the show last week. If you didn't listen to our interview with Jordan Ashburn, I highly recommend to go back and listen to that. Such a good conversation with Jordan, the current points leader and soon to be champion. But where was I going with that? I had a point. Talking about Rabbit. Oh, so I was talking with him over the weekend, and that's just the thing. He's always, and I think we talked about it on the show as well, but he's always been there. He's always been consistent. He's been consistently on the podium week in and week out. He's been consistently second place, consistently third place. He gets a win at Snowshoe, backs up with a second place this weekend. He is, if you look across the board, one of the most consistent riders. Like, if you look at their average finishes, it's got to be Jordan pretty close to the top of that list as far as overall average finishes. And I think, or I don't think, I know that is what has set him up for this championship. Jordan Ashburn is on the verge of being a champion. It's because he is there week in and week out. He's just consistent. You can count on him being there and count on him being up front at the finish. So he does have the possibility to wrap up the championship. He needs to make up 4 points on Craig DeLong. The way that it currently sits right now, I had it pulled up, and now it is not there. So the way it sits right now, our XC1 points is Jordan Ashburn with 212 out in the number 1 spot. Ben Kelly still in second place with 180. And then Craig DeLong with 158. So right now, actually, so I forgot that we did work that math out. So right now he's 32 points ahead of Ben Kelly. You would have to be 60 points ahead after the next round to wrap up the title. So Jordan would have to win in Ohio to become the champion. So if Jordan wins the overall in Ohio, no matter what, he would wrap up the championship. So that would put him 62 points ahead of Ben Kelly. And even if Craig DeLong gets second place, then he still makes up 5 points on Craig's. He only needs 4 points over Craig to wrap it up. So if Jordan wins in Ohio, he could wrap up that championship. If not, we will likely see that happen at the penultimate round of 2022. But regardless, there's some exciting stuff going on. The XC2 points battle is still up for grabs between Ryder Lafferty and Lyndon Snodgrass. Although yesterday was a very big day for Lyndon. Let me look at these overall points. I think I did the math on it yesterday. I want to say that it was 14, either 14 or it might have been 24 points that that Lyndon made up on Ryder. I think it was. Looking at the points right now, I think Lyndon made up 24 points over second place of Ryder Lafferty yesterday. Right now, Linden sits in the number 1 spot with 223 points. Ryder's in that number 2 spot with 187 points, but right on his heels is Mike Witkowski with 183 points. So only 4 points separates Mike Witkowski and Ryder Lafferty for that number 2 spot. And that is 20. I don't know. It's some points up to first. Linden's got a pretty good gap. Fourth place, it's Rui Barboza with 174 points, and then fifth place is Cody Barnes with 161 points. So that title is still up in the air, but Linden does have a pretty comfortable gap heading into these final 3 races. So a lot to keep an eye on, a lot to look forward to. That XC3 battle is still right in the thick of it. We also look at our WXC class over this past weekend. That is going to be a battle that's going to come down to the wire too. We mentioned Taylor Jones was in the lead for the points heading into the race. Taylor actually had a DNF for this race. So Rachel Archer made up a lot of valuable points on her. They get 2 drops as well, so Rachel Archer takes the win. That's going to knock out her highest position on the year, which is going to make up a lot of valuable points for her. And then she has one more finish that is off the podium, so if she podiums any of the last 3 races, she'll get rid of that score as well, and then the points will be right there in the mix with Taylor getting a DNF on this weekend. So that title's still up for grabs as well. Corey Steed is still right there in the mix. Corey finishes second place on the day this past weekend, and Jocelyn Barnes gets her first ever pro class WXC podium, and it was a drama-filled one that came down to the wire, wondering if her bike was going to hold on, and then Preston Rains was also on the verge of getting her first WXC podium as well, but ran into some issues there on the final lap. I believe we're going to talk to Jocelyn Barnes for OTP Tuesday tomorrow as well, so that'll be cool. Tune in tomorrow. If you watch this on Twitch, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Go ahead and follow us on Twitch if you have an account. The accounts are completely free to make. Once you make one, you can comment on the show, and we'll be able to ask your questions live on the show. But if you do make one, go ahead and give us a follow if you don't mind, and we're going to keep the content coming to you. Put the podiums up on YouTube, so if you want to go watch that, you can find them on the Pipe Podcast YouTube channel. That's always that's where you get the most information about the race. You hear exactly from the rider's mouth what happened. It's right after they come off the track, so it's still fresh in their mind, and that's part of why I want to keep putting those things up. You get some really good information out of it, and also get to, it got emotional with Dad returning to the podium. You could tell the emotion in his voice. Rui Barboza, another one, you can see the passion, and he had some good sentiments about not giving up and how he pushed through to end up on the podium. So you can find those podium interviews on the Pipe Podcast YouTube channel. This show you'll see pushed onto the YouTube channel as well. So if you're not subscribed to us over there, go ahead and hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Other than that, we'll have some content coming out throughout the week. Appreciate you guys listening. Appreciate you being here. We'll see you tomorrow for OTP Tuesday. That was the Weekend Review with Stu. I was Tyler Shepardson. We'll see you next time. See you guys.